Hi, this is Kevin. Welcome to my tutorial on how to draw a state machine diagram. So, what I'm showing you here is this is the diagram that was used when I put together the lecture for state machine diagrams. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to redraw the diagram. And so we'll get to talk through the logic again. And I think I'm going to make a couple of small improvements on the diagram. And then, we'll talk about the diagrammer parts and all that kind of stuff. For me, it's probably true whenever I'm drawing a new kind of diagram with a diagrammer. It's probably helpful for me to sketch out the diagram on paper so that when at least when I'm creating like my first state machine diagram, I'm not wrestling with my ideas and the diagrammer at the same time. That's why it's kind of helpful that I've got this diagram that we both have already seen from the lecture, and I'm trying to clean it up. So I'm going to be able to concentrate on the diagrammer. So this is a state machine a diagram for the application entity in a system that would be used to process applications from prospective students to get into graduate school. And it's highly simplified. And I've got a case that it's called Easy University. And I hadn't really added this to that case, but I think I'm going to do it because what's easy about Easy University is that the requirements have been simplified in order to be able to concentrate on wherever we're doing with the case. And this is not a realistic process for a graduate school application. I also want to point out this is not an activity diagram, right? This this is a diagram for an entity in the system, and we're going to track the states that it's going to get into, and we're going to track the triggers that trigger the transition into a new state. Okay, so we're documenting the states, we're documenting the triggers. We're not documenting all the action, okay? And it's going to be used exclusively for the purpose of going back to the data model and assessing the sufficiency of the data model to represent all of the states that we put into the state machine diagram. Okay, that's all we're using it for. It's pretty typical for people who are new to these kinds of diagrams to begin to confuse them with activity diagrams where we're trying to show all the action. And well, the two things that get confused with activity diagrams, one, trying to show all the actions. Nope, these just show precipitating, triggering events or actions. Okay, just the last one. Okay, and then the other thing is that in activity diagrams, the activities are in the boxes. Okay, in here the states are in the boxes. So even though it looks a lot like an activity diagram physically, it doesn't work like an activity diagram, and that's important to remember. Okay, so this is approximately what we're trying to draw, and like I said, we'll make an improvement or two. All right. So let's open up Visio 2016 here on my virtual machine, and to find my way to the template Okay. Usually, the list of templates that you're shown has to do with what you recently used. So if you haven't created one of these recently, you're not going to find it in this uh, featured list. You can go to categories, or you could go up here to suggested searches and go to software. The last time I did it, that's what I did. I clicked on software. But let's look at categories and see what we're going to find. And we have a category software and database. Let's click that. Okay. And down here in row 2, the next to the last one, UML state machine. That's what we want. Click that. Mine's defaulting to US units. Um, that has to do with the grid pattern and whether it's going to be in something like inches or something like centimeters. We want the US units. Click on create. Okay. And it's going to put this together. And I typically like to draw on this electronic paper that has landscape orientation. If that's not what you want, I think you go to design. So yeah, we go to design orientation up here, and you could click portrait. I just happen to like to draw in the landscape, and that's the last one that I used. Okay. Alrighty. Now we're going to pause here a second, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So in the landscape orientation for me, that's what I do. And what I typically like to do is to put the big objects on the diagram. If I've already sketched it out, right? And again, you can kind of look here. We'll say this is my hand sketch. Okay. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 states going down, and then there's a group of 3 at the bottom, and there's one state over here. And I want to have my start symbol in the upper left and my terminate symbol in the lower right. Okay, so for me, I do best if I just take all those objects and I pull them onto the diagram. Okay, so let's try something like that. There are 2 balls. The solid ball without the banding around the outside is the initial state or start. So I'm going to drag that out and put it in the upper left. And I'm going to take the final state and drag it and put it in the lower right. And I just want to tell you that I see diagrams that have more than one symbol for final state. And I think that's a bad idea. Okay, so I basically want to have one place that we begin and one place that we end. Okay, and there are 4 different kinds of boxes on the diagram here for state. And I'm just going to take the plain one that says state. And you got to start to line them up here. I think this is probably pretty good. So we've got 1 there. Okay, and we said there were going to be 2, something like that. And we're going to have the third one down here, not quite that far. And the third one has 2 companions, one to the left and one to the right. So when you take the approach of having pre-sketched it like this, it becomes a little bit more of a drawing exercise, right? So, and then we're going to have a state out here. We have a returned that is going to lead to the terminal states. I think that's about right. Okay, so I'm having a hard time reading this, so I take the slider down here and go up. Usually I do well when I'm up over 100%. So yeah, maybe something like that, a little bit easier to read. So the top one here, this is when the application to, oh, let's say what we're going to call this, just so we can. So I'm going to go, I didn't want to go to file. I guess I wanted to go to home. Yeah. And on home, I've got some tools up here in the middle at the top, and one is text. Okay, and I'm going to pull out a text box and give it a title. I don't have to do it right now, but it gives me the opportunity to distinguish this from the document that we had before. Okay, um, and we're going to call this EZU application system. This is where you apply to Easy University. Okay, and again, it's easy because it's been simplified. It's not particularly easy to get into or easy to graduate from. It's all about simplified requirements. And we're going to say state machine diagram for application. So it's for the application entity. Okay, so let's see. If I go up and click on the pointer tool, now I'm going to be able to start to play with this box. And I think the box goes down a little low. So I'm going to click and try to make it like that. And now I'm going to click on the text. I'm going to double click on the text and highlight it all. And when I go up here, I think I want this to be like, oh, it's straight. 18 point looks good. 18 point bold. And I think we want the color to be black. Yeah, something like that. EZU application system state machine diagram for application. So I've already kind of made the improvement of the naming. All right. So let's, again, I'm just going to peek at my diagram here and see what all these states are called. Received, awaiting consideration, rejected, accepted, waitlisted, returned. I like all those. Okay, so let's just go to the box and you need to double click on the title. If you double click on the bottom, you wind up putting text into the bottom of the box. And we don't really put text into the bottom of our box on this diagram. So if that happens to you, click off of it and go back, double click on the title. Okay. So this top one is received. Okay. Click off of it. And the next one is awaiting consideration. Okay, click off of it. And then the one immediately below it is accepted. Okay. And if you hit enter, it just makes the top of the box bigger. So I didn't want to do that. So click off. And then over on the left side, rejected. Click off of it. Over on the right side, waitlisted. Okay, click off of that, and over on the top side, returned. Okay. All right. Do we have any other things that we need to put into it? Yeah, there are two decision symbols. There's one between received and awaiting consideration, and there's one between awaiting a consideration and now this uh, group of rejected, accepted, and waitlisted. So I'm going to draw those on there. Okay. And the symbol in the diagram here is called a choice. So we're going to have a choice up here. Again, you can kind of use the helpers to get them centered right. Okay, and then there's another choice down here. And again, the helpers can help you get them centered right. All right, and that's all the choice is. And now it's a matter of drawing the lines. Okay. So how do we draw the lines? Well, we go up to the top here in the middle and we click on connector. And now when we hover over these things, you can see their kind of connection ports. So I want to go from the starting symbol to received. Okay, and I'll let that go. I do that by dragging it. Okay, and now drag from receive to the choice, and from the choice to awaiting consideration, and from awaiting consideration to the next choice, and from that choice down to accepted. Okay, and now it turns out that this choice symbol easily supports 3 paths. So I can connect over on the left side to go to rejected, and I can connect over on the right side to go to waitlisted. Okay, and each of these connect to the terminal symbol. That's what makes them terminal states. So we're gonna go from rejected to the termination symbol, accepted to the termination symbol, and I don't really have to work to get these lines to combine. I just connect here the bottom of waitlisted to the termination symbol on the left side, and the diagrammer combines the lines appropriately. And then we got a couple more. We've got a situation out of the choice at the top where we decide to return it. Goes over to returned. Okay, and returned is a terminal state, so it should be connected to the terminal symbol. Okay, and the only thing we need to do now is we need to show a way to get somebody out of waitlisted and considered again. And what we're going to have is we're going to have a transition that happens when it's ready for consideration, ready for reconsideration. Okay, so let's go. Okay, we're going to go off the right side and then up and then over to the left and then put it right there. Okay, and then I could use a little bit more room here for this line, so I can hover over top of the little dot in the middle and drag to the right. And now I think everything's going to be kind of pretty. Okay? Okay. Okay, so I want to put labels on these things. Well, I guess I could clean up the drawing a little bit. If I pull this start symbol down, I should probably get, oh, this is interesting. I was trying to reposition the symbol when I still was loaded with the connector tool. So I probably don't want to do that. So let's go up to the pointer tool and click on that. And now I'm going to highlight that extra line that I drew that I really don't want. I got a lot of stuff I don't want there. So you can select them and click either backspace. Backspace doesn't work. Delete works if you have a delete button. And if you don't have one, well, if you're using the Windows operating system, you probably do, I guess. But if you click on something, then you can either use the delete or you can use cut. So I'm going to get rid of that box with the cut, and I'm going to get that arrow. I don't know why it wants to do that. There are times when this thing just wants to misbehave. Yeah, okay. I'm just going to get rid of stuff. Get rid of that. Get rid of this arrow. And now I'm going to get rid of this start symbol, and it's the arrow that it grew. And now I'm going to pull on a new initial state. And that seems to be okay there. And now I've got to I got to connect that. Okay. So I'm going to connect that to received. Okay, and go up and click on the pointer tool again. Okay, I think we're all right. So, which of these things do we want to label, and what do they represent? Okay. Um, you do not need to label this arrow that connects the initial state with received. Why is that? Well, because it identifies it as the initial state. Okay, so the first time we see it, it's received. Now, there typically is some kind of action that triggers that. So if you want to document it, you can. Okay, so let's see. Um, uh, um, yeah, I can't even think. We receive it. It's obvious. I can't think of a name. I'm not going to put anything there. So this initial state bubble modifies or identifies received as an initial state. What about the terminal states? Do they get text on them? No, they never should, and I'll tell you why, right? The connection between the terminal symbol and these states is what labels them as terminal states, okay? If you have some kind of triggering action that happens after this, you probably have forgotten to document one important state, okay? So, labels on these lines that come out of the diagram, you don't really want them, okay? So we're not going to need any there. So we're going to need some on the interior. Okay. So typically before a decision or a choice, I like to show some kind of action that embodies being ready for the decision. Okay, some kind of a trigger to to start this move from state to state. Okay, and I'm just going to say that it is checked for validity. Okay. Okay, and that puts a capital C unchecked, which I really don't like, but I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to fight with the diagram, and I don't want you have to fight with the diagram either. So this is a triggering action that's going to move us from state to state, but depending upon conditions, it's either going to go to one state or the other. Okay, so let's take the one where we decide to return the application. I'm going to double click on this and I'm going to put a guard condition here. Now guard conditions always have square brackets around the text. So I'm going to open a square bracket and I'm going to say not valid application. Okay, there's something about what we told them to send us that they didn't send us. They didn't send us a check. They didn't sign it. They didn't do this. And at EasyU, where things are simplified, we're just going to return it. Okay, so that's where it's going to go into the returned state. Do we need to show all the actions that do we need to show that we're going to put the application in an envelope and we're going to mail it back or this or that, or we're going to send them an email? No, we don't. This isn't an activity diagram. Okay. We want to show the state that they can get into and what triggers them into the state. So what triggers a returned state is we check it for validity and it's invalid. Okay. Then it's going to move to the returned state. There might be a lot of actions that happen there. We're not documenting them. Okay. We're documenting the triggers and the states. All right. Now, on the other line here, then in square brackets, we want valid application. Okay. And click off of that. All right, and we can probably use a little bit more magnification here so you and I can read. All right, so we've got that. All right, that's good. Okay, so we're awaiting a consideration. Okay, at some point, a decision is made on the applicant. Okay, so I'm just going to say decision is made. Decision made. Okay, and now we've got three guard conditions to do. Okay, if we decide to accept, okay. So, sorry about that. These things pop up all the time on my monitor. It drives me nuts. Okay, so let's say the guard condition should be let's just say was accepted. Okay. Okay, if the decision was accepted, then it goes into the accepted state. Click off of that. Double click on the line that goes to waitlisted, was waitlisted. Oh, this is a guard condition, so it needs to have square brackets. So square bracket was waitlisted. Square bracket. Okay, that one's good. And now go over here, square bracket was rejected. Okay, that looks good. All right, so we've got that. Now, do we have everything we need? No, we have one triggering action over here that's not been labeled. Okay, so how exactly they get reconsidered from the wait list? I don't know, and I don't want to have to show all the steps. Okay, so I'm just going to say that the triggering action here is it's chosen for reconsideration. Okay, So that's what happens, and that's what causes it to go and await a consideration again. So the idea here is we have a kind of a loop, right? It stays in the waitlisted state until um, somebody chooses it to be reconsidered. Then it goes into awaiting consideration again. And then uh, it should uh, go into rejected or accepted. Okay, now when we think about this, right, is waitlisted really a terminal state? Now, the more I look at this, the more I think that before the end of the process, okay, waitlisted as an intermediate state is going to resolve to either rejected or accepted. Okay, if that's true, then I've got a line here that I don't need. So let's right click on that and say cut. Okay, so the terminal states are rejected, accepted, and returned. Okay, waitlisted is an intermediate state. Okay, and it transitions when chosen for uh, reconsideration. Okay, and how does it get to a terminal state? Well, it gets either rejected or accepted. Okay, there's a similar process that's going to go on with the applicant where we return the application. Okay, uh, and if they decide to fix it and to send it back, well, we're either going to return it again or it's going to go into awaiting a consideration. So um, while it's in this return state, this is um, when when we get a new application from the prospective student, okay, it's a whole new application to us. Okay, so terminal states are returned, accepted, rejected. Okay, now let's see if we can save this. So I'm going to do a file save as. Okay, and let me see. This is the last place I put something was here, and I'm going to call this. Now I'm going to call this EZU. That's why I call this Easy University case. EZU application state machine diagram. That looks like a good name for it because it's a tutorial example. Okay, so we have that. Okay, so now that's been saved. Now, what I need to do is I need to generate the PDFs that I'm going to submit for my assignment, or I'm going to, in the real world, I guess I would share them with my stakeholders, right? So I'm going to click on File, Print, and the printer I'm going to choose here is Microsoft Print to PDF. Okay, and then I click on the Print button, and it brings all this kind of stuff up, and I'm going to put it in the same directory. And one of the things I don't like is it doesn't show me the name of what I had before. But I think this one's called EZU. Oh yeah, it's called EZU Application State Machine Diagram. And I don't think we have to add the PDF, so we won't do it. So I'm going to click on that. And let's just see what I have here. Let me open that up. And here's the new one, the new PDF. And everything looks the way we would like it to look. So this is ready to submit. Okay, but what's the thinking here? Well, now I ought to be able to go back to my EasyU application system, okay, and I ought to be able to look at the entity called the application and surrounding entities. And what I want to know is, are there enough places in the data model that I can figure out everything I have to figure out? How do I know it's received? How do I know it's awaiting consideration, which means it's been checked for validity and it became valid, right? How do I know that it's been accepted or rejected or it been put in the wait list category? Okay. Now, I think I mentioned in the lecture, and I want to emphasize this here again, the naive solution to this is to say, oh, let me go to the entity or table that represents the application, and let me just add an attribute called state or status, okay? And let me say that the possible values are received or awaiting consideration, blah, 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 blah. And that would seem like a good idea to the uninitiated, but the problem is that it becomes redundant information. Okay, so I don't have a problem with us adding some code into the system that's like standard code that checks the database to figure out the state of an application. Okay, I don't want to put a label on the application for a particular state. What I want to do is when it comes time to figure out if things are awaiting a consideration, for instance, I want to be able to go pull facts out of the data model that I can evaluate and reach the conclusion that it is in the state awaiting a consideration. If that's a common code that we put into a shared function or a shared class, depending upon the language that we're using when we implement that, that's great. Okay, so we want to know that we're storing enough individual facts in the database that we can deduce the state. Okay, we don't want to create a label for state. Okay, because that will be redundant information. All right. So that's it. We've talked through the thinking. We've improved a diagram that you saw the previous version of. We've done the drawing with Visio 2016, where you'll either be using that or some other tool, maybe something like Lucid Chart. Okay, and try to remember the tips I've given you here. Don't get sucked down the hole of thinking this is an activity diagram. Okay, that's where people naturally go. The only thing that we've learned about so far that uses these kind of symbols is the activity diagram. And we are thinking about activity when we're drawing it, but this is a highly stylized diagram that only shows the states, the triggering activity, the last thing that happens before it changes from state to state. Okay? All right, that's all your lessons, that's all your warnings. I'm going to say good luck on your diagramming, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.